What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Blonde Blazer, talk about the character, talk about what I liked about her, and just go over kind of a character analysis type thing. I want to do the same thing for Invisigal, this kind of post-dispatch content. By the way, if you guys are watching this and you've watched my past stuff, I don't really say it until actually the end of the video, but truly, truly appreciate you guys. So let's get into Blonde Blazer, and we can call her, Blonde Blazer Mandy. I think that's kind of important almost to humanize her. What a great character, really. And may I start by saying, all right, if you've watched the channel for, I guess, at least 2-3 weeks, okay, if you've been with me for that long, which is really not all that long, I do want to first issue an apology. I saw some Twitter posts, not geared towards me, although it was geared towards the things I said, so maybe I'm included. I've seen a lot of people say, if you were in the camp of believing that Blonde Blazer was a villain, you need to apologize. And you know what? I'm going to take that quite seriously, and I'm going to man up to it. I'm going to apologize for being so stupid. And no, honestly, we thought about the Invisigal thing. If you watch my videos, like, that was a thing that was being talked about, and I kind of didn't want to believe it and went towards like the less popular opinion that, like, okay, it's kind of obvious that's Invisigal, so maybe it's not as an obvious choice. Maybe it's Blonde Blazer. So that was kind of the mentality, just to kind of make you understand how messed up in the head I am. But no, this is a person that's just good. Can we start there? Because I really think that's an important thing to talk about when it comes to Blonde Blazer. This is a character that has just a real big heart. Like, she cares. And especially kind of just now that we're done, now that we see the entire arc and we see the ending, we see what she did to for Chase, I should say, right? We see how she reacts if you're picking her, if you romancing her, what that kind of final conversation's like, when they're drinking on the car, or, and again, this is the one I chose, like, I chose Invisigal, right? Now, I don't think that stops me from being able to talk about how great Blonde Blazer is, because I've seen all the scenes, but even in that one, she's just a great friend. She gives you advice. She tells you, take care of her, and be there for her. So this is just a character that, especially now that we can, like, confirm, okay, like, she's no secret mole. She didn't have, like, some ulterior, motive throughout the entire thing. It just was really good at hiding it. This is just a character that cares. This is a character that I think was very, very important for Robert to, like, be close to, whether or not, by the way, you romance her or she's just your friend. Because now, thinking about the whole picture, I mean, the first episode, not only does she kind of save his life, but she gives him a chance. I think that's just such an important thing. She starts the whole thing, because she believes in his ability, and you just look at how that relationship evolves. You look at the trust that she has. Now, there is a little bit of direction, right? Like, she says, okay, we're gonna have to cut somebody. I'll let you pick, even though I guess technically it ends up coming down to two people. Probably a game choice there, right? Maybe in real life, a real life Blonde Blazer would have told Robert, okay, you have full say, right? You can choose whoever you want to cut. The game had to kind of limit us, certain options. But this is a person that was just always there, always friendly. Of course, she could be more than friendly. I saw the date night dinner that you could do with her. Of course, you can pick Invisigal at the movies or her with a dinner. And that's where you start to get a little bit more of, like, her more, I don't even want to say human side, because I actually think all of the kind of quiet moments with Robert just sitting next to her, you think about the bar in episode 1. You think about, of course, like, the billboard, which is now kind of just like this famous famous location for both of these characters, right? Because both times they were up there, you feel such great chemistry. Can I also say that in terms of just the actress too, right? Erin Yvette, so unbelievably good. And I think she's one of the absolute best voice actresses out there. And her and Aaron Paul, like, there's, I think there's a lot of chemistry between, like, Laura Bailey and Aaron Paul. In fact, they picked them, right? Remember when they went up to announce the game at the Game Awards? There was there was some stuff where it's like, I don't know about their husbands and wives that they were comfortable seeing that, because there is just undeniable chemistry between those two. But honestly, there's great chemistry between Robert and Mandy, and that's something that actually is even brought up by Invisigal, right? Not even romantically, but, like, Invisigal wants Robert in that way to look at her how he looks at Blonde Blazer. And what does that mean? The respect. Anytime you're having conversations with Blonde Blazer, they treat each other as equals. And I think it's probably pretty easy for Robert to do because he's just a guy. He's a guy who is always trying to kind of almost punch up, right? Like do something above his weight class, hence Mecha Man, And Blonde Blazer, she is so powerful and she's obviously like such a higher position than Robert. But the fact that she also treats him with incredible respect, even after saving him, after giving him a chance to kind of redeem himself and redeem a Z team. The whole point of that, right, is to kind of get these people to work together. I think that really speaks on great class to her character as well. And then, now I will say this, a thing with Blonde Blazer that is interesting is she's used sparingly. She's pretty heavy in the first 2 episodes. They're establishing it and kind of establishing also her fame, right? But then you get to the last 2 episodes, because I would really say the middle ones, again, I think the main character traits that would really come off in those middle ones is that respect, is just, she's there for you. You're able to pursue her, obviously in episode 4 if you want. And then you get to 7 and 8. And, well, okay, number 1, you finally get a taste of her powers, right? Which I think my favorite, again, I do like when they're at the billboard kind of looking at the Hollywood sign. She's very funny. She's got a lot of charm to her. Like, you could see, I could watch an entire episode of just those two chatting because I feel like their little quips and stuff would be really, really interesting to watch. But, those are kind of my favorite. But I probably would say my favorite scene of her is when she rescues Robert from Shroud, I believe, at the end of episode 7, is you get a little taste of her power. And of course, you're going to get way more of that later. But you kind of, you see a different side to her. And I think that was such a cool just moment, in this game, because she's just walking up. She exudes that energy. And the one thing I will say, even in terms of Shroud, I think actually Shroud kind of helps the appeal of Blonde Blazer, because she even has his respect. And I think Shroud is a pretty cool character, at least in certain moments. And the fact that he takes out the bartender, for talking down, to Blonde Blazer, and, just the way he talks about her, of, honoring one of the last, like, real effing heroes, just the way he talks. And then when she comes in, in all reality, they could have taken her out. And it goes both ways. Like, her line was incredible there, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm kind of lying about that backup that's coming, right? But I'm going to do my best to clear as many of you out as possible and save Robert. And I'll probably take out half of you. So either you can go or half of you are going to get taken out. Number one of the one of the most badass moments, I think, of the entire season. And coming from a character that up until that point, like, she saves Robert. She obviously has pretty cool powers, but you don't see the full extent. And you also just don't get, I think, that outward confidence, and she actually doesn't show that outward confidence almost at all. That's really maybe the first time you see it. So and just kind of getting that mutual respect. Well, maybe not mutual because she doesn't respect Shroud, but like Shroud just feeling the way he does to her, and he actually literally does back off, when in reality they could have taken her out. We know he always is predicting things, so obviously that wasn't something that was going to happen in his head. But that was just such an amazing scene. And then of course the fight. You get so much of her powers there. Of course, in both outcomes, whether you're fighting Sonar or Coop, she kind of comes in as this, presence to try to talk them down. And it obviously fails both times, right? She becomes a dispatch member. You get to kind of play around with her in that way as well. And boy, could I have used, because I'm terrible at towards the end, the last couple episodes, I was terrible at dispatching. So I could have used somebody with her incredible skills throughout the entire game, to be honest with you. And I even like that too. There was a little bit of lore that is, well, obviously, like, in terms of her powers, coming from the necklace type thing, we don't know the full picture there, and I kind of like that. I like the mystery. I like that there's some things that just don't have to be answered. We even get a little talk, like, remember when Robert is kind of taken out, she's dispatching, and when you go into that, there's even talk of, like, she's rusty. Blonde Blazer is rusty, but she used to perhaps do that. So, like, I wonder, I saw this even online, like, could we get one day through a comic, through something, like, could we get an origin story to her? Because you kind of see, jumping to like the very, very end, right? Like, she's a cool person, but she's also a person, a person with a heart and a person that really cares, and hence the chase stuff as well. But it's like, she also doesn't have powers, technically. I believe she says that to Robert, right? Where it's like, I think she says, you're not the only one who doesn't have powers. She's technically reliant on something that is, I guess in a way not not hers, or not her. Just like Mecha Man is not really Robert, it's Mecha Man. Her blonde blazer persona is, it's part of her, but it's not fully her. She's got a personality and a person away from that. And I think that, honestly, that duality and kind of matching Robert in that way, I think is actually really, really cool. Now, I think that works best as a friend, but it's hard to deny that, like, she's not incredibly likable. She is. I think she would make a great partner for Robert. Again, we've all kind of seen those moments in the game. And now kind of circling and ending where I began, she's just good. And I will say, I think we kind of, not only did you need a character like that for this game, but it's also kind of refreshing to have a character like that in general. You could think, if you want to go maybe a little bit negative, but actually it turns into a positive at the end, and let me explain, she's not all that deep in terms of, like, I guess those alternate or ulterior motives, and I mean, I guess you can say that as a negative, where it's like, okay, who's Blonde Blazer, like, really deep down? And some characters, you have to kind of go through all these different arcs and all these different, kind of zigs and zags in order to get to who they are. Blonde Blazer is actually very easy to sum up and describe, right? And so you can look at that kind of, what I mean? Like, in a way, maybe that's more of a negative, but I actually look at it as a positive, because number one, you kind of needed a character like that for this game. And because, you have Robert, who's just going through a lot. Invisigal is obviously a character they focus on a lot. She is probably the most complex character, okay? And then the Z team, in terms of, like, how they're literally built, are also complex people. Now, they're complex, but they're also simplistic, right? Like, they're just bad guys trying to be good, and you're trying to make them kind of work together, and seeing that growth. So I kind of feel you needed, and I will say, okay, I'm not disappointed in the slightest that, like, my theory turned out to be wrong, or anybody's theory about Blonde Blazer being bad turned out to be wrong, because I think seeing it all play out, seeing that romance option develop, which was really awesome, even though I didn't choose it, I thought that was still just a great thing that you could, experience. You needed a character like her that was a little, in that way, simplistic, but simplistic in a great way, because she's a good-hearted person. And I guess, like, Chase is a good-hearted person, but, again, she's a girl that's just around. She helps you out. She gives you advice. She gave you a chance when you're down. She's got the comedy. She's got the charm. Obviously, she's got the looks. But she also complements the idea of, she's a human underneath that superhero persona. And it's one thing to do that, but it's another, like, well, literally the superpower is not tied, like, internally. It's not tied in her. It's tied to an object. And I think that actually makes her even more relatable, even though I think her heart is the thing you can relate to through 7.5 episodes, right? It's only the very end that it's like, okay. And you get a little hint of that when they do the date night, right? Her hair changes where it's not actually blonde, and that's the first kind of, and she literally talks, I think, about the amulet thing. So you get a little bit of it, but of course the ending is like, okay, there's your, absolute confirmation that she's a human underneath it. And again, the personality and her heart is what made that the case the entire game. But then you literally can see it, like, okay, she powers aren't connected, internally to her. So just a great character, overall great character. Not as deep as, again, I would say maybe Invisigal, and maybe, some of the internal things that Robert's going through. Maybe she's the least deep of those three, but she's honestly, it's a character that you need. It's a character you needed in this game, and it's also just cool to kind of have a character like that in general, because actually, a lot of characters do have those, like, double or triple or quadruple kind of meanings, or, things that you have to kind of go through to figure out who they are. It's sometimes refreshing to just get a character that is who they are. And in fact, you have to have fans create theories to try to ruin it, and then turn out to be wrong, which, again, I'm glad I was wrong. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.